Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. Thank you for taking time out of your day to check the video out. I really appreciate it. We have more PlayStation news, rumors, and leaks to go over and cover here today. So do me a favor, if you end up enjoying this video or finding it informative, be sure to leave it a like. Helps the videos out more than you know. And if you are new here to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button as well. We're starting here talking a little bit about Resident Evil 4 Remake. First of all, today is launch day. So if you're somebody who bought the game and has been playing it, let me know how you're liking it so far. But there is an important update regarding the PS5 version of RE4 Remake specifically. This is coming from the official Resident Evil Twitter account. They say, "We are aware of an issue where players may experience flickering lights on the bottom of the screen when playing the PS5 version of Resident Evil 4. Here are some temporary fixes we recommend. We intend to fix the issue in a future update and apologize for any inconvenience." So it says here, if you're experiencing this issue, please try saving and restarting your game. If the problem persists, try changing one of the following settings in the game's options menu. Number 1, set the depth of field in the display tab to off. Number 2, set motion blur in the camera tab to on. So yeah, this is something that unfortunately is affecting the PS5 version of RE4 Remake, and as they say here, a fix is coming in the near future. These are the settings you're going to have to enable or disable to fix the current issue. But continuing to talk about Resident Evil 4 Remake, we are learning that the Mercenaries mode, which was included in the original Resident Evil 4, will be coming as a free DLC update on April 7th. I'm sure a lot of people who played the original Resident Evil 4 were hoping that this would be there, because in the original game it was an unlockable mode. And so if you're somebody who is wondering what's going on with it, it is coming. We're just going to have to wait a little bit longer. But we also have an update on the upcoming Resident Evil 4 Remake PSVR 2 mode, and it's been confirmed by Capcom that they are now starting development, and it will be a free DLC. So this is not something they've been working on. They're just now beginning development of it. And I think the fact that it's going to be a free DLC is certainly good. And at this point, people are wondering what to expect. Is this going to be like the full game, like basically what we see with Resident Evil Village, or is it going to be something smaller? If I had to guess, I would say it's going to be the full game. And so while it may take a little bit longer and, you know, we're going to have to wait for it, it seems like the wait will be worth it. At least that's my assumption. Moving on to the next topic, though, we have an update on the upcoming Ghost of Tsushima movie. This is coming from Chad Stahelski, the director of the John Wick franchise, as well as the upcoming movie, or the one that just launched today, John Wick Chapter 4. And recently, he spoke during a Q&A where he was basically asked what he's learned from, working on this franchise that he's going to be able to bring over to the Ghost of Tsushima movie. And he said, with every John Wick, we try to build the world a little bit bigger, and with the characters and set pieces and lighting, just what we've learned over the past couple of years with DI, Digital Intermediate, the coloring at the end of production, and what you can do with new technology and with new Alexa cameras, that's kind of allowed us, hopefully, to take cinematography to the level that Ghost deserves. You can see the purples and pinks, and we can push the color and highlights about as far as you can push in Chapter 4. So it was a big technological achievement to get the colors that we did in this and to get them to really stick, especially in the theaters you're seeing them in. So this is definitely interesting. First off, I think it's great that somebody like Chad Stahelski is the one, helming a Ghost of Tsushima movie. There's going to be a lot of action in this movie, and knowing that this is the individual who's responsible for pretty much most of what we see in the John Wick series, definitely have a lot of confidence there. But he talks about the colors, and that's interesting to me because one of the things that I do think about when I think of Ghost of Tsushima is the color of the game. It's a pretty important aspect of the game, and so it's going to be really cool to kind of see what they're able to achieve here, because he seems to be very proud of what they were able to do with the coloring in John Wick 4. So yeah, very interesting stuff here. Can't wait to see how this movie ends up coming along. Moving on from that, though, we have a kind of random topic, but it might end up being relevant. A U.S. senator says that Sony has a monopoly on high-end Japanese game market. It says here from Push Square, a new player has entered the never-ending saga of Microsoft's proposed $69 billion acquisition of Activision Blizzard. Democratic Senator Maria Cantwell, who represents the state of Washington, weighed in on the subject today in a rather confusing fashion. Spotted over on Reset Era, the senator made some comments during a Senate Finance Committee hearing on the president's 2023 trade policy agenda, which we are sure was incredibly engaging. Senator Cantwell stated that she was, quote, told that Sony controls a monopoly of 98% of the high-end game market, yet Japan's government has allowed Sony to engage in blatant anti-competitive conduct through exclusive deals and payments to game publishers establishing games that are among the most popular in Japan, end quote. This 98% figure is quite misleading, ignoring PC, Nintendo, and mobile games, and instead refers to Sony's adoption rate over Microsoft in Sony's home region of Japan, a revelation which shouldn't come as much of a surprise to anyone moderately aware of the video game industry. After accusing Japan's Federal Trade Commission of having failed to investigate this alleged exclusionary conduct properly, she asked U.S. Trade Representative Catherine Tai, "What do you think we can do to address these issues and create a level playing field?" As Luke Plankett over at Kotaku rightly points out, it's ludicrous to suggest Sony has some kind of monopoly on the Japanese gaming market because, quote, Sony doesn't even have a 98% share of the God of War market, a series they own, since Steam is getting 30% of every sale on PC, end quote. Obviously, we can't expect elected officials to be experts on everything, but it sure is a conspicuous take during a fairly critical moment in the ongoing acquisition effort. This article ends by asking a question. They ask, is it relevant that Microsoft, not to mention Nintendo, is headquartered within Senator Cantwell's district of Redmond, Washington, or that Microsoft has contributed more than $500,000 to Cantwell over the past 2 decades? We will let you decide. And you kind of understand what they're suggesting here, and I have to be honest, it's hard not to at least consider this because it is pretty disingenuous to make it seem like Sony has a complete stranglehold over the Japanese market while simultaneously completely ignoring Nintendo, which is a huge competitor in Japan, and also going on to completely ignore PC and even the mobile game market. To me, that is disingenuous because Sony simply is not the only, player in Japan. That's just not the case. If you follow video games, you know that's not the case. Now, when it comes to specifically just Sony and Microsoft, we know that Microsoft, compared to Sony, pretty much has no presence in Japan. But that doesn't mean that Sony is literally the only competitor in the video game space in Japan. So, pretty strange, have to admit. This is a pretty strange take coming seemingly out of nowhere, as the article points out, during a pretty critical time. So you guys make of that what you will. But one last thing we do have to cover here with this whole situation, it is actually really important, and I think some people might be pretty happy to hear about this, depending on, which side of the fence you're on. So this is being reported by Push Square. It says, in a stance softening that's almost certain to conclude in Microsoft's unobstructed buyout of Activision Blizzard, the UK's Competition and Markets Authority has changed its opinion on the impact the eye-watering $69 billion acquisition could have on console competition, referencing new evidence which suggests it's likely to be minimal. According to a statement released earlier today, an inquiry has reached the provisional conclusion that overall, the transaction will not result in a substantial lessening of competition in relation to console gaming in the UK. It seems that regulators now do not believe there's a financial incentive for Microsoft to make Activision's games, including Call of Duty, exclusive. While the CMA's original analysis indicated that the strategy would be profitable under most scenarios, new data, which provides better insight into the actual purchasing behavior of Call of Duty gamers, indicates that this strategy would be significantly loss-making under any plausible scenario, it says. Now, there is an update here. It says Activision Blizzard has released a gleeful response in relation to the UK regulator's softened stance today. The CMA's updated provisional findings show an improved understanding of the console gaming market and demonstrate a commitment to supporting players in competition, it said. Sony's campaign to protect its dominance by blocking our merger can't overcome the facts, and Microsoft has already presented effective and enforceable remedies to address each of the CMA's remaining concerns. We know this deal will benefit competition, innovation, and consumers in the UK. So basically, what we are seeing here is one of the major regulatory bodies that has made it very difficult for Microsoft pretty much completely change their tune. Now, it's worth noting that they still do have concerns in the cloud gaming sector, but this is going to be no problem. You know, Microsoft will make whatever concessions they have to. But when it comes to the big thing that Sony was holding on to, that being like, you can't let this go through because of Call of Duty, so on and so forth, that is no longer an issue for the CMA. And, you know, when we kind of zoom out and look at the bigger picture here, it seems like this is pretty much the straw that's going to break the camel's back in a way. There maybe up until this point was the potential of, okay, this could maybe still get blocked and not go through. After this, though, it's pretty much guaranteed it's going to go through. And so we did recently hear as well that apparently, even though the EU hasn't issued their final verdict yet, we've been hearing rumblings that apparently they're going to end up being okay with it as well. And so really all that leaves is the FTC. They will be the final one standing, still attempting to sue Microsoft. And in that situation, I'm not sure what's going to happen. I don't know if there's a chance that maybe the FTC, you know, after the EU and the CMA basically say, yeah, we're letting it go through. If the FTC is the only one left standing, maybe they'll decide, you know what, we're not going to bother taking this to court. I do not know. What I do know, however, is that if there was ever a time for Sony to basically, you know, let it go and just maybe sign that 10-year contract and move on, it's now. And unfortunately for Sony, I think that's pretty much all they're going to be able to do. Now, I have seen some people speculating that maybe it's too late for Sony to sign that 10-year contract. I highly doubt that. We have to understand that if Microsoft were to, you know, play hardball with Sony all of a sudden, there are still things, if I'm not mistaken, that could basically work against them, and that could and would be used against them. So it would likely be in Microsoft's best interest to just let Sony sign that 10-year deal like the other companies. And we do also have to consider that Microsoft is likely going to want to continue making more acquisitions after Activision Blizzard. So if they were to suddenly turn on Sony and say, we're no longer going to let you sign this 10-year contract, that absolutely would be used against them with their next acquisition. And I do not think Microsoft wants to take that chance. So I think ultimately what we are seeing here is the beginning of the end of this entire thing. And I'll be honest, I'm looking forward to it because while I do not know what the long-term implications are of Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard, what I do know is that this is going to force Sony to have to be on their toes and to have to make sure that they are pushing even harder to be the best that they can be. And as a PlayStation fan, I have absolutely no problem with that. But I do think it is going to be very interesting to see what happens in the video game industry once this goes through and it's, you know, a done deal, and you know, to see what comes after that. So there you go. That's going to do it for the video, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. I hope you found it informative. Leave it a like if you did. Subscribe if you're new. Hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.